Hey attorneys, should you give your client your cell phone number? Yesterday or the day before, I put a post up on Facebook about, it said something along the lines that clients want to hire a law firm where their attorneys act like experts instead of receptionists. I thought it was a pretty catchy phrase and kind of drove home the point that attorneys should be doing legal work, right? It's one of the most polarizing comments or posts I've ever put on social media. And it really got me thinking, like, man, what should we do as attorneys? Should we be available 24/7? Should we give our clients our cell phone numbers? Personally, I want to look for what I call three-way wins. I'm not the person who created that, but I like the phrase of it. So a three-way win is where the client wins, right? I think we do need to focus on making sure that our clients get just excellent service, the highest quality representation, the best solutions to their problems, right? But that's just one of the ways. The other way is that the firm, the company wins, right? We've got to get paid for the work that we're doing. Unless your entire team wants to work for free, at least I know my team doesn't, we have to get paid, right? The company has to get paid, and you need to be compensated for the risk that you're taking as a business owner. And then the third one is your team. Your team also needs to win as well. Obviously, their compensation is one of those things, but I had to realize early on in my career that even if a client, you can get an excellent outcome for a client and they're paying very well, that if they are a pain in the butt to work with, it's not worth it, right? That's not one of it's got to be all three. The client, your firm, and your team has to win in order for, at least in my opinion, your company to be successful. At least that's how I should say how I define success, right? So that comes back to the question of how do we communicate with clients effectively without being available 24/7? I am a strong believer. One of the first core tenets that I share in my company is that we have a work-life balance, that we work to live, we don't live to work. I love what I do. I love the people that we serve. I love how we get to help people. But at the end of the day, it's still an income source that allows me to do the things that I love, like spending time with my family. Like I worked from home yesterday so that I could watch my daughter while my wife took my older kids skiing, right? Like that's the stuff that's important to me, right? So we've got to have a work-life balance. And I definitely couldn't be answering the phones while I was doing that. The other flip side, let's say even, you're a small firm and you can't answer the phones. I would want to challenge you to think like, your clients still deserve better than having you be the one answering all of their questions. And here's why. There are times, at least there better be times, that you're doing work, right? You're in a trial, you're in a mediation, you're drafting a complex motion and can't be interrupted. Whatever that is for you, drafting an estate plan, whatever. You, in order to do a good job, you have to be focused, right? And I darn well bet if you tell a judge, oh, hold on 1 minute, Your Honor, I need to take this phone call, it's not going to go over well, right? There's plenty of times in which, in fact, I was doing this the other day and someone was giving me tons of pushback. And I was like, well, you at least have to go poop at some point, right? Like, please don't answer the phone if you're in the stall. And I got some laughs, and at least it drove home the point that no matter who you are not available 24/7. You sleep, hopefully 8 hours a day. There's just times that you're not available. If you build a team, if you build systems, you can provide answers and help to your clients when you're not available. So now I don't want this to be interpreted. When I say that an attorney shouldn't be the receptionist or shouldn't answer the phones, whatever that is, I'm not saying that attorneys shouldn't communicate with their clients or shouldn't communicate with their clients on the phone. I'm just saying that you shouldn't be the front lines, especially because when you've had a bad day or you're working super hard on emotion, you may be burned out. You just may not have the emotional capacity to give your clients what they need, right? So I'm going to bring this back to my law firm, right? I own a family law firm here in Northern Utah, and I would say a large majority, maybe 75-80% of our clients are female. We work closely with an abuse shelter, so we have a lot of victims of domestic violence. They're in a very bad situation, right? Very tough emotional state. I am not the best person to handle that situation. I care sincerely about their situation. That's why we've built what we built. But at the end of the day, maybe I just don't have the emotional intelligence necessary to have those conversations. I'm also a fixer, right? There's a YouTube video out there. If you haven't seen it, you should Google. It's not about the nail. It's a woman has a nail in her head, and she's talking about the pain in her head, and her husband, all he wants to do is fix it. And she's like, it's not about the nail. I am a fixer. I'm the one who wants to pull the nail out of the head, right? And I had to realize that about myself. Should I be that way? No, some people don't need that. But it is who I am. And so I hired somebody who isn't. I hired somebody who can answer the phones, can express empathy. They've been divorced themselves. They understand the situation. My receptionist literally lost custody of her children for a while, so she gets it. She can express that empathy, right? I would argue that has made my law firm a significantly better law firm by hiring her and having her answer the phone, having her listen to the 30-minute sob story, and then boiling it down into what we need to do next. So often, I would say at least on a daily basis, if not more frequently, what will happen is they call, they talk, right? And then my assistant kind of, after the client feels heard, then she rolls into, okay, like, this is what I want to make sure the attorney knows. Like, these are the questions you have. These are the facts. And she kind of makes a summary of what the conversation was. And the client has an opportunity to fix that, right? And, actually, I think it's this instead of that. And at the end, she says, okay, so you have these questions for Chris, and you want to make sure he knows these things. Is that correct? And they say yes. And then she puts that, we have a client portal. So our clients should be communicating by the portal. That's another conversation for another day. But at the end of the day, phone calls are important, right? We take them. But she puts that right in the portal. Hey, Chris, Miss Jones called. She had these questions, and she wanted to make sure you knew these 3 things. We let her know. I would argue, and I would challenge you to start thinking, how can you, instead of just being available 24/7 or having your cell phone number given to your clients, how can you better provide them the service that they deserve? And I asked this question on my Facebook group, Time Freedom Lawyers. If you're not a member, you should go check that out because a lot of this stuff's there. I reached out to some of the top attorneys that I know run very successful firms and had them pitch in as well. And I kind of made a summary of what everybody said. So instead of being available 24/7, this is what I think you should do. One is preemptively answer their questions. So in most cases, you as the attorney know what the general flow of things is, right? So like here in Utah, most cases, we're a mandatory mediation state for domestic cases. And so most cases you file a petition, the other side, has 21 days to file an answer. And then after they file their answer, we have a little scheduling conference. At that conference, the judge talks about when we're going to go to mediation. We go to mediation. About 95% of cases settle at that mediation. And so really, most cases follow a very similar pattern. Sometimes there may be temporary orders or a protective order or something in there that needs to be done, but for the most part, we follow a very similar pattern, right? So I can preemptively build that. I can say, hey, look, in most cases, this is what happens. And so when I draft a petition, which I have to do in every case for an answer, right? I can have an email put together that explains that process. Hey, in every case, you got to do a petition. Now that it's ready, like this is just the opening of the case with the court. The court can't award you anything that you don't ask for, so you kind of have to ask for more than you actually want. So this isn't really a wish list. It's just a best case scenario, give the court some flexibility type thing, right? So we answer that. And then we file the petition. We say, hey, look, especially in our firm, right? We've been super, like when someone hires us till the time their petition is filed, like we're talking to them multiple times a day. There's a lot of touches there. We want to make sure they're taken care of. Then their petition gets filed and all of a sudden nothing, right? Realistically, nothing has to happen for 21 days. And that can be kind of a shock to clients where they've had so much contact and so much being taken care of to wait 21 days with nothing. And so we make sure we let them know, hey, your petition's filed. We have now officially done everything we possibly can do. And I put that in there. There's nothing else that I, as your attorney, can possibly do with the court until they file an answer. Most attorneys take the full 21 days to file their answer. So don't be surprised if you don't hear from us for 21 days. They don't expect to hear from me. And they're okay with that. Because they understand why, they don't need a constant touch. Now, in our own system, I like to tell people I'm not going to talk to you for 21 days. And then about halfway through, about 10, 11 days in, we send an email and just say, hey, just want to touch base with you. I know it's been a little while since we've talked to you. If you remember, the other side has 21 days to respond. It's been 11 days. So I would expect it to be another 10 days or so before we hear from them. But as soon as we hear from them, we'll let you know. And that way they know we're looking at their case and that kind of stuff. To be honest, that email is automatically sent out. So we don't even have to do anything there, but the client still appreciates the touch. So step one is preemptively answer their questions. If your client understands the plan and understands what's next, they generally can be okay with going a long time without being heard from. In fact, some of my immigration coaching clients, they'll have processes that take like 12 months, 6 to 12 months, 6 months at best. 12 months is a realistic outcome. And they tell their clients this, like, hey, now that we've done everything, we're just waiting on the government. And the government's not fast. So don't be surprised if this takes 12 months. And then every single month, they just send out an automatic email. Hey, it's been 30 days. As we've mentioned, it's probably going to be another 5 to 11 months until you hear from us, but I just wanted you to know that we're looking at your case. We're watching it. If we hear anything, we're going to let you know, but we wanted to let you know that we're taking care of it. Again, those emails can be automatically sent, right? You do get the notifications, and you can pre-draft those things. It's really easy. The clients love it. They're super grateful. And in this case, clients literally get communicated with once a month and they're happy, right? So it's not about the frequency. I see a lot of things out there that's like respond within 24 hours or call your clients every single Friday or something. And those are great. I think clients will appreciate that. But if you're preemptively answering their questions and helping them understand what the plan is, you can go longer than a day or a week in answering someone's questions. So that's the first one, preemptively answering their questions. The other one is what I would focus on the most is the first one's the plan, right? Which we just talked about. But I think that client satisfaction comes down to 6 points. The first is that every case has a plan. The clients need to know what's going to happen, why it's happening, that kind of stuff. That plan needs to have value. So, and this is where I think most lawyers fail. And it's that in a traditional law firm, right? You say, hey, I'm going to do this motion to enforce. Your son of a BX was 15 minutes late. How dare he ever do something like that? We can do a motion to enforce. The court will find him in contempt of court. He may even serve some jail time. We'll see. He'll probably have a fine, whatever. Let's do this. And they say, yeah, my ex is a son of a B. And you file this motion to enforce. And then when we get done, that motion to enforce costs their client $2,500. And they're like, oh, I wouldn't have paid $2,500 for 15 minutes, right? He is a son of a B, but 15 minutes isn't worth $2,500. And the client didn't understand the value and price of the case, right? And so we preemptively, again, have this conversation with clients. Hey, your ex is a son of a B. I 100% agree with you, right? To do a motion to enforce is $2,500 on average. And if you do flat fees, obviously you can tell them the exact price. If you don't do flat fees, figure out the average and tell them, it's on average $2,500. Let them have this conversation, because I had a case the other day where the person was constantly being late or picking up kids from school when it wasn't their day and doing these things to intentionally cause problems with my client's job and her family and all of these things, right? And so after like 6 months of trying to work with this guy and co-parent with this guy, and I reached out to their attorney, and we had different resources, right? We did all of these things that didn't work. He was 15 minutes late, and I told her about the motion to enforce again, right? And she says, yeah, it's worth it. In this case, because of the 6 months of history, the 15 minutes worth it, let's do the motion to enforce, right? It doesn't matter. I had a guy give up custody of his kids because he didn't want to pay for trial. It was heartbreaking that was a decision he made. At the end of the day, as long as they understand the value and they understand the price, they get to make the decision. And that's where I find most clients are happy and where most law firms fail. So as I'm talking about communication, right? The next step of this success pattern that I talk about is communication. Once you've done that, you have to be a firm and a person of integrity, doing the things that you said you're going to do. So the first part of that is saying things that you're going to do, right? You need to communicate. You need to make sure the clients understand the plan. But once you've done that, right? Once they understand the plan, once they understand the value, once they understand the price, and that's been communicated to them and they truly have an understanding, the next step is commitment. The clients need to commit to the plan, including their payment structure, right? To be a client of integrity, they need to follow through with their side, which includes paying you. That's a lack of integrity when they don't do that. Or you have to follow through with what you say you're going to do, right? So if you say, hey, we're going to have this motion done within 7 days, then you better have a system in place to get it done in 7 days. And if you can't, tell them 10 or 14, right? When our firm, when we do this and we commit to something, before we tell a client a hard and fast deadline, we go in and figure out who's going to do the work and we put it on their calendar. Because I want to make sure that if I'm going to commit someone to something, that they have the bandwidth to do it. And the only way I can measure bandwidth is time. So we go on the calendar. If there's a blank space, I assume that person's available and we stick something in there. And my team's been taught, like, hey, you got your brother coming into town and you want to go to lunch with your brother? You want to spend 2 hours at lunch with your brother? Do it. Work-life balance, right? But put it on your calendar. Block off 2 hours, block off 3 hours. I don't care how long you block off. But if it's not blocked off, I'm assuming you're available and I'm going to put something there, and then you're going to have to do it. As a law firm of integrity, we have to follow through with the things that we said we're going to do. And so the last step there, obviously after commitment, is execution. If you do those 6 things, so have a plan, have a value, have price, communicate those 3 things with the client, get commitment from them and from the members of your team that's going to take the action, and then everybody follows through, you'll have a successful business and your clients will feel heard. They'll be happy with the representation, even if you take months to get back to them. If there's ever a frustration with a client or someone doesn't feel heard or upset, go back to that 6 steps and figure out what was missing. I dare say for firms that haven't been practicing this, it's going to be the value price discussion or a lack of communication. When someone says though that you're not being communicating with them, what they're really saying is, I don't understand. So go back to the plan, make sure they truly understand the plan and everybody's part to play. And I bet you'll find very quickly that your clients are happy with the representation, they're happy with the level of communication, and you don't have to be available 24/7. Last little piece I want to just say as you're thinking about communication is who on your team is best at doing each step of communication. So like my paralegal is the one who schedules mediation. So she should be the one who tells my clients about when mediation is, right? It makes sense. Whoever's taking the action should be the one that's communicating. And as you realize that, you're going to realize that you yourself are probably more often than not the right person to be giving the communication, and that's okay. Your clients will appreciate it. So this is my little 10 cents. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Waiting for a meeting, so I figured I'd hang out with you guys instead of just doom scroll on Facebook. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Are there things that I'm missing? Is there something that you think you could do or that would help people feel better heard, feel more communicated with than what I mentioned here? I'd love to hear it. So thanks guys. We'll see you in the next one.